Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR Podcast. Bristol Thursday Night Truck Series action. Who doesn't love weeknight racing? Short window between practice, qualifying, and the race. So let's lessen the load, do some homework now to make it easier to filter through the practice data and make our picks. You want that data like you had in the spring race. Check out racefortheprize.com, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Send the money over, $10 for this weekend or the month of September. Maybe I'll see you in October. Get the sheet, get the data, have some fun. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, action. Get it in before the football season kicks in. Christian Eckes been absolutely terrific at Bristol in the last two races. 61 hog points, 58, dare we say dominator, because those were dominant performances, dominant points. And that has been the modus operandi for McAnally Racing. Last three races have been at short, flat tracks, so that's going to create a bit of a skew. We have seen Eckes and Majeski kind of step above Heim. I wouldn't get off Heim time going back to Bristol. This car has been fast, or truck's been fast all season, but the last three races definitely suited Majeski, and Eckes seems to be just the class of the field, regardless of the track they go to. But one thing worth noting is this is IRP, Richmond, Milwaukee, shorter flat tracks, so some people might be running a little hot that may not continue at Bristol, and some people might be a little colder than what you would expect, like Heim. But A, those tracks may not have suited Heim. B, those tracks absolutely suited Majeski and Eckes. So, of course, Heim is probably fine. It's just they were better at those tracks. We go to Bristol, things could easily change. And so you look at the top three, and there's really not much of a difference between them. Eckes, Majeski, Heim. Obviously, if you had to pick right now, you're going to go with Eckes based on what he did at Bristol in previous years. We can look at the spring race real quick as we try to identify projecting speed, and Eckes was at the top of the board in spring. Eckes runs away at the show. Majeski at the top of the board, but only one guy is going to lead. Well, no, I don't want to say that. I mean, we could get multiple hogs, and we have seen in the past two drivers with the hog points, which then requires a punt. But obviously, Majeski didn't kill the scoreboard because it was just all about Eckes. You want to go with the one hog build, that's fine with me. But Majeski had speed. And we go back and look and see, well, let's just quickly look. Here's the cars with speed. Makes sense. Connor Jones laying down actually a pretty fast lap. Corey Heim, pretty good. But remember, they were struggling with qualifying back then during that part of the season. But the drivers that are fast are exactly the drivers you would think were going to be fast. And Eckes ultimately gets the best of the day. Majeski a little disappointing there with 11th. I want to see, he may have had an issue, if I remember correctly, having to pit under a caution. I believe that was the case. But still, I would lean Eckes. And then I would put Majeski and Heim right next to each other. I know that Majeski's been super hot, but again, these tracks absolutely favored Majeski. And I could see Heim closing the gap or being better. I mean, when we look at more of some traditional intermediate tracks, I think their setup would be pretty good there at Tricon. Sanchez is too expensive, and he's just not in their tier. You can chase place differential with him. Infinger, similar to Majeski, the short flat tracks absolutely benefited him. So I'm willing to downgrade him, whereas I liked him at all three of these races. I didn't like him as much at Milwaukee, and that worked out. I don't think he is in the tier like Majeski and Eckes, because he was pretty much at those short flat tracks. Now, it is worth noting he is driving a McAnally truck, or a quasi-allied with Robaugh, and it's shown a lot of speed, but at 9,600, can't get there. Connor Zilich, the man, the myth, legend. Check him out 5 o'clock tonight in the ARCA race. That should be fun. We've seen him run well. He's got 2 Truck Series races under his belt. That interesting COTA race. And then at Richmond, which in the end doesn't look that great on paper because he wrecked. But before he got into a wreck, which was caused by other people, he believed he had a top 5 truck. Now, a top 5 from Zilich at 9,400 is not really the greatest play in the world. He needs to lead laps at his price. He needs to get place differential at his price. This may just be a matter of, hey, we're rooting for him, but we're not really going towards him in DFS. Ben Rhodes has had about top 10 speed of late. We can look at what he's doing driver rating wise, but he's not in the elite tier. I don't expect him to lead laps and run fast laps. Sure, we could get some pit cycling where he gets track position, but again, he's not much of a steal. I would put Taylor Gray right there as well. These are top 10, borderline top 5 drivers, but they're not in the Eckes Majeski Heim category. And you're not getting any savings. Ankram's a step down, but he has turned his luck. He had that bad luck run throughout the middle of the season, back on top. But again, just like Gray Rhodes, I'm trying to put Zillage, they're just maybe top 5 drivers. Of course, if we get place differential and the lower we get in price, then they become more viable. Same thing with Raja Caruth, right there, about a 10th place driver. I believe he's got top 10s-ish in his 2 Bristol races, 8th and 6th in the last 2 seasons. He'll be fine. Lane Riggs is interesting. He's another driver who definitely benefited from the schedule going to short flat tracks, late model racer, gets the big win at Milwaukee, going in the right direction. And there were high expectations on Riggs as a late model prospect. It is Front Row Motorsports, so we expect a lot from them, given past championships. But they do have new crew chiefs, new drivers. There was enough change that it took a while for development. We talked about this all season in the podcast, and now we're finally starting to see it. You look at the last 8 races, he's been a top 10 driver, top 5 at the tracks that suited him. Could be a step back, but I think he's going to be ready for Bristol, and it won't be much of a problem at 8,300. He has just as much top 10 possibilities as Caruth, Ankram, Gray. Maybe Rhodes is slightly higher, but you're getting him at a cheaper rate. Corey Day, the big story of the day, or the story of the night. The dirt track phenom. A lot of hype, a lot of pressure on this kid, similar to Connor Zilic. Zilic has absolutely lived up to it. We'll see what Day has. But again, all of the dirt track drivers say basically at his age he's the best there's ever been on dirt. If you watch High Limit Racing, I believe he also does some Outlaws as well. But the kid's the real deal. But this is asphalt. This is stock car. This is Bristol, baby. They asked Christopher Bell about what they thought about Corey Day's debut. He said the 2 things that Day really has to work on, which was from Bell's transition from dirt track racing to the truck series, was A, live pit stops, and B, the length of a race. As a dirt racer, you're not doing that. And even in Day's limited ARC experience, we don't have live pit stops. And as a dirt racer, you're not running so many laps. And boy, do they run a lot of laps at Bristol. You've got to be focused. It's tough. It's a very challenging track to make your debut. But he's with the right team. McAnally is the team you want to be racing for if you're making a debut. So he will have a fast truck. He does seem to have the talent. Can he be mistake-free? 8,100, not a bad price. Tanner Gray, you know Tanner Gray. The stats never really change. He's always a top 15 driver. Never really much or more or better. Sometimes worse. Chase Purdy's kind of been in that category as well. Really started to develop and have a pretty good part of the season. Then in the last couple races, wrecked at Richmond, and then just struggled all day at Milwaukee. But again, those are tracks where it's not really like Bristol. So I wouldn't wipe him off the board, but I don't know if he's that safe. I mean, you might actually feel better rostering Matt Crafton at a similar price point, given he's been pretty consistent of late, running at some of these older tracks that might suit him. But then again, he's also been pretty strong at Bristol, despite struggles over the last couple seasons. It's a track he knows well. I would rather play Crafton over Purdy, Gray, but not Day. I love taking my chances with Day. I love taking my chances with Riggs. I don't even think that's much of a chance. But in that 8K under right there, probably leading Crafton. Probably next go to Daniel Dye, who's posted very similar results to Matt Crafton. I mean, look at that speed. Actually, probably a lot better. That's some solid consistency. That's one of the big worries that we've had with Daniel Dye over the last 2 seasons. But as he gets more reps in the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, he is definitely improving as a driver. Very underrated. And look at that. Top 10 driver rating in 5 of the last 6 races. And those are at various different tracks. Gateway, Nashville, Pocono, Richmond, Milwaukee. You really like to see it. And hey, guess what? It's a McAnally truck. Makes all the difference in the world. Not as crazy about Stuart Friesen. William Sawalich really kind of disappointed me. But again, it's a reminder that, just because you're leading the ARCA series, it means absolutely nothing. If you have the top car in the ARCA series, you're going to win every race. And the fact that Sawalich doesn't actually win all the races, sometimes, you got, what's that guy's name? Finhouse. Finhouse steals wins from him. Zilich doesn't steal wins, takes the win. So Sawalich hasn't really been that dominant in his Toyota in the ARCA series. He's good. He's the best in the series, but he's not going to win the East Championship. Zilich is actually going to win the East Championship. And Zilich would have won if you did the whole season. That's amazing. Anyway, you can see, looks like a Tanner Gray Light version. We know who Ty Dillon is. We know who Dean Thompson is. Dean has top 10 speed for Tricon, but Dean gets into messes often. He will be ARCA racing. I'll go over that list here in a second. Caden Honeycutt's been really good this year. And Phil Gould's a really good crew chief. We'd love to see him racing more, but look at the results. Look at his driver rating. That's an alarm. That guy's going to get mad. I know that guy's listening. I'm not going to listen to this podcast anymore. I'm unsubscribing. I can't take the beeps. Well, it's not beeps. It's my treadmill running, and I apologize often for it. That was an alarm clock going off. Sometimes I get up well before my alarm clock. He's mad. Here comes the comment. And then I'll roll off the apology. Anyway, Caden Honeycutt, 8th at Atlanta. That's Atlanta. Who cares? 10th driver rating at Bristol. 12th at Martinsville. These are challenging tracks. 4th at Kansas. 2nd at Charlotte. 11th at Nashville. 12th at Richmond. 10th at Milwaukee. Caden Honeycutt really coming into his own. Hopefully gets a full-time ride. 6,900. That's a steal. Jake Garcia, one of the Thor extras, I guess we call him. Decent at Bristol the last 2 years. Having a decent run, not really that great. Worth considering if you get placement differential. Connor Mosack. One thing you might want to try to do is reframe your perception of Mosack. Mainly because last year was just a really disappointing season. I think we're all having trouble kind of shaking out of our brain. And we expected a lot from him out of the Sam Hunt Racing Camp in the Xfinity Series and just never really did anything. So we got to wait and see. Not quite sure how it'll play out for Mosack. Now, despite all those struggles, he did finish 14th in the Xfinity Bristol race last year for Sam Hunt Racing. So put that in your hat. What am I going to do with my hat? I don't know. I just said something. Connor Jones, your other Thor extra driver. Top 20s. Again, not bad at Bristol. It seems that Thor has some pretty decent runs. Actually, when you look through some of the previous Bristol results, it's kind of surprising, shocking that a lot of the drivers have good results. How can everybody be getting good results? Now, Connor Jones is not very good in the last couple of races, but you go back to more traditional intermediates, and he didn't have speed. So you could put him back on. I think I'd rather see if I can get up to Caden Honeycutt, but I don't know if there's that much of a difference. Yeah, there is. Caden Honeycutt's been much better, and even Dean Thompson. But down here in the Garcia, Mosack, Jones, Marco Andretti land, if that is where your limit is, then yeah, I think Jones is worth consideration. Now, one of the things I was saying, you look through some of these previous Bristol results, Garcia's been pretty good. Jones, not bad. Caden Honeycutt, 2 out of the last 3, not bad. When you look at all these guys, pretty solid green numbers here in 2023, 2024, 2022. How's everybody having decent days? Well, they are. So it goes. Marco Andretti will be running the ARCA race. I don't think there's really much of a reason to roster him, especially not at $6,500. Just get to Jones, get to Mosack, get to Garcia, or even go down to Stephen Parsons, who 18th last year, has a borderline top 20 truck with Henderson. We'll look and see what he's been doing over late. Right about where you expect him to be. Matt Mills had his unfortunate start to the season with mistakes, then kind of put together a couple of decent races, and then went back to being Matt Mills. It's just not the niche truck I want. I want Caden Honeycutt, or I can go even cheaper with Bailey Curry, who, kind of as well, they had to do a crew chief change, had some mechanical issues, We know the talent's there. We know the speed's there. Just has to put together a full race. Same could be said of Mills, but I have more belief in Curry. And if you look at Curry, last 3 seasons at Bristol, 11, 13, 15, 6,200, I'm on board with that. Jack Wood has not been good at Bristol, but Jack Wood has not been good in general over his career, but he is slowly starting to develop. And that development probably has a lot to do with his pairing with McAnally Racing. They have really strong trucks. They have really smart teams. And Wood's not doing anything stupid. Wood's been good. Let's look. 17th at Milwaukee, 19th at IRP, 17th. So in his last 5 races, he has a top 20 driver rating. That means he's probably going to run around 20th or 17th. And there's going to be attrition. There's going to be cars or trucks that fail. He easily could sneak into the top 15. At 6,000, why not? You usually could make that case for Bailey Curry, but just the way the season's been going, you don't feel as confident thinking he's going to avoid some sort of mistake. Now, I don't know why the sudden confidence in Jack Wood not making a mistake, but he has at least done it and proven it over the last 5-6 races. But Curry, you could make that argument. I have a hard time making the argument of, Mills can run inside the top 20 and then benefit through attrition of drivers just making mistakes or wrecking. Same thing, it's hard to make the argument for Parsons. Hard to make the argument for Andretti. You can easily make it for Jones. Probably a little tougher for Mosak, but he will be in a niche truck. But let's not pretend that a niche truck is elite hot rod. They're pretty good, and the one that Caden Honeycutt runs is the best with Phil Gould. But the argument probably is the other niche trucks are not as competitive as the Thor trucks and definitely a McAnally truck. I really like going to Wood in this spot. Surprisingly, Timmy Hill has not been very solid at Bristol. Maybe he's just so worried about tearing up his equipment and hurting his team, but that is shocking. I expect him to be a little bit better. But here in this backpack, the Lemons class, C class, Hill hasn't been great. Brett Holmes hasn't been great. Wallace Allen's never really that great. But occasionally he sneaks into that damn optimal lineup. You know the drill. So we look at Hill, we look at Holmes, and they're running about where you think over just really the entire season, running 25. My question is, okay, you can run 25. Can you get the attrition boost and have decent finishes? And it's not that consistent. You got Hill with a couple of top 20s there, or 3. You got Brett Holmes with 4 above 21st or better. You got Wallace Allen sneaking in at Richmond, sneaking in at Gateway. You can't completely rule out Hill, Holmes, or Allen because of that. They have enough speed to run top 25, and they can benefit through attrition, maybe get up to 20th, possibly make it work as a place differential play. And you're going to need a 6K or under play, someone in that low range, because you more than likely probably got to pay up for 2 hogs. I'll go ahead and throw that on the screen. Or dominators. You can see spring race 61.44, so
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
They're always watching. Anyway, you can see that you definitely have 1, but on average, the second driver on the DFS scoreboard puts up 25 hog points. If you just look at it as paying up, would you pay up for a top 5 and 25 place differential? Would you chase that? Yeah, you would. So would you pay up for a top 5 and 25 hog points? Yeah, you would. Obviously, you're going to pay up for the Elite 51. You're going to have to pay up for a second driver and then build based on finishing position and place differential. And that's going to pretty much tie your hand to taking a driver in the Jack Wood land. And I think Jack Wood will be good in the hood, or at least popular in the hood at Bristol, as long as this car has speed under the hood. Come on, man, you're killing us. Anyway, they're definitely on the board. Thursday night, short track racing. Yeah, attrition could be a thing. Mondique, I did some research on him. There's nothing. Very limited. Really has no experience. And the experience that he does have is very weak, and the young trucks haven't been that great. I could not see spending $5,500 on him. You know the story's, Boyd. If he's starting last, maybe Mason Maggio, not super pumped about these trucks. I don't know if they've expanded that Florida team since the beginning of the season. Started out as a plate truck from Kyle Busch's team. I'm sure that they've worked on it, but not something I need to chase. Tyler Tomasi, similar to Mondique, if I'm saying that right. Very limited experience. Also jumping in a quasi young truck. Justin S. Carroll going to roll up the hauler, throw the truck on, see what they can do. Not really interested unless he is starting dead last. He has been not terrible. Now that is pretty terrible. But that's where you expect him to run. It's like the bad version of Hill, Allen, and Holmes, where they can run top 25 and benefit. He can run like 30th and then hope to get a good finish like he did at Richmond with 27th, finish 28th at Pocono. I would imagine he's going to be about 7 laps down by the end of this race. Same with Keith McGee. The only reason I would go anywhere near Boyd, Maggio, Tomasi, Carroll, McGee is because I'm absolutely forced to price-wise, and they're starting in the back. I don't mind playing Allen, Holmes, and Hill. One of them could easily go from running in 25th, finishing 21st. They get 7 or 8 place differential, it works. Jack Wood is obviously, all things being equal, the play to go to. Above and beyond, better than the drivers below him. I like him better than Curry. I like him better than Mills, but I think Curry's a fine play. Don't mind Parsons. Not super excited about rostering Marco Andretti. I think Jones is fine. I might like Jones more than I do Garcia. Probably not going to get the Mosack, but again, did have that strong run in Xfinity Series last year. And remember, they hit that reset. I think I downgrade Mosack a little too much. He does have plenty of late model, short track experience. It's not a bad driver. I'm just disappointed last year in the Sam Hunt racing car. Honeycutt's good if you can get there. We know the story of Thompson. That's everybody. Let me run through real quick. So in the ARCA series, you're going to have Friday or Thursday afternoon. Zilich and Sawalich will be racing. Brandon Jones is also going to be in this race. Mosack, Marco Andretti, Lost Allen, Dean Thompson, Corey Day, and Greg Van Alst, who will be in the Xfinity Series. I think Marco actually ran pretty well at IRP recently. We do want to look at that. So if we are considering putting him back on the board. No, maybe he got a good finish. I think that's disappointing. 29th driver rating, 25th. That's not going to get it done. But again, it is a Roper truck. Like, what are we really expecting from Marco Andretti? Anything else I want to mention? Yeah, nope, I think that does it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Like the videos, subscribe, share. Hope you have a wonderful truck series night. It's Bristol, baby.